Since I'm at the end of my COVID isolation, I'm feeling much better now. Not even taking any drugs or anything. I'm just waiting for the two stripes in the COVID test to become one, and I'll be released into the wild. So anyway, so whilst I'm here, I need to make a new pair of Regency shoes. I've already made two pairs before, and both have been fairly awful. They're good, you know, alpha beta testing of armour concept. So I do Napoleonic reenacting with the 95th Rifles. I'm also in a group called the Revolting Peasants, and we do all time periods. We focus mainly on medieval, like 13th century, down to Dark Ages, but basically wherever there's peasants, and there's always been peasants, so it gives us the opportunity. So this weekend we're doing two events. One is 95th Rifle Shoot, and the other one is a Heritage Day at the Australasian Pioneer Village. And what I'm doing is a display on Regency period shoes. Now, so they're very different to the shoes that we know now, and they're quite different even to hand stitch shoes as done today. And I'm going to quickly talk about what I think actually happened to my limited degree of research that I've got. One of the problems is that there's very few Regency period shoes, like Napoleonic War shoes, available that you can take a look at. You see a lot of noble shoes, very rich, affluent shoes, and they are a bit different. The concepts are basically the same because there's not a whole lot of very strong glues that we use today. Almost all our shoes are glued together, and it's only when the glue fails that you throw them away. So what we do in the Regency time period is a whole lot of stitching and a whole lot of pegging soles together with wooden pegs. So here's a rather large wooden peg. This is actually apparently lemon wood. Why is it lemon wood? I believe it because it's a little bit more resistant to rot, and also it doesn't swell and shrink as much. Because when that piece of wood is the only thing attaching your sole to the top part, the top sole, it needs to be able to stay there. Now, these shoes did not last long. There's a lot of historic references for military marches where they've come along and says, okay, we need to run, here's a new pair of shoes. People have ditched their shoes, put the new ones on, and within half a day of walking, they're already falling apart. You had cobblers within battalions who would fix the shoes that were coming in. You were issued a pair of shoes and a pair of soles, because arguably the upper part of the shoe would last far longer than the actual sole, and that would come off for various reasons. You would like to think it would just wear away, but more than likely, I believe the pegs would probably release and give up, and as soon as, say, the toe starts to flap, it'll start putting pressure on all the other pegs and the sole will come off. So that's why you were issued spare soles. Now, one of the things also is that the shoes, what they were called, straight lasted. So therefore, one shoe fitted either your both left and right. So makes it logistically probably very easy. My left shoe blew out. Here's another size 12, and go put it on. Or one size fits all, which is just a lie. So the way that they made them is they used a last. A last is a wooden foot. Here's one that fits me, my size 12. So it looks quite chunky. It's quite rough because I'm, not a person for nice smooth lines and spend a lot of time doing those type of things. But basically, this fits my foot. Now here, you can see that I've rounded this. Now, when I first made my first shoe, it was very square. Now, I understood they had square-toed shoes, but what I underestimated I gave too much length in my foot. I gave an extra half a centimetre of toe freedom, and that just made me catch the toe all the time when I'm walking around, because I seem to drag my left foot a little bit, my left toe, and also it was too wide across here. So this is a shoe that I've made and pulled apart, so I've actually removed the bottom sole and the heel, and that's just the upper part of the sole. So why am I doing this? Well, partially because I'm cheap. I make medieval shoes, but medieval shoes are not Regency shoes. We can talk about ladies' slippers, which to me look very much like medieval shoes, because that's basically what they are. But I need to replace this faithful old shoe that I bought almost 14 years ago when I started doing Napoleonic reenacting. But as you can see, it's starting to wear away the heel in the ball of the foot, because that's where you walk. Now, what you can see here is that there's a whole lot of glue and there's a whole lot of nails going all the way around here, multiple layers of leather to create that heel, and it's one piece at the front and one piece going around, and it's actually got a heel stiffener in. So I need to replace these before they totally fail me. As it is, I've already glued and stitched in things together to make it last just that little bit longer. But this shoe that I'm making now is first off cheaper than actually buying a new pair, although the amount of leather I'm using for this doesn't make it cheap. But also this is fun, and this is experimental archaeology. So as I said, there's very little evidence for shoes, and if they are, they're quite affluent shoes. And what I'm doing is trying to make a peasant pair of shoes. So I've hacked out this. I believe this is close enough. I'm not making a boot, a long boot. I'm making a shoe. So I've got this. I've made a pattern. I've wrapped it around, and I'm quite happy with it. Make sure I give about 2 centimeters underneath, because it all gets sewn underneath. And I've made the upper where the toes are, and I've made the bit that's the heel. So I've got 2 of these, 1 for each foot. And the bonus is I'm not going to worry about which foot I'm going to put into anything else. And coincidentally, I really like this. The leather has got, I think that's a T8. Unfortunately, that's going to come through here, but maybe with a bit of polish you won't be able to see it. But this is really nice, soft leather, and arguably a little bit softer than I've normally done. So for the soles, I'm using about 3.5 mil leather. So as you can see, this replicates that, because I've traced around that. So I'm going to use one here, and that's so you've got the skin side, and you've got the flesh side. So the flesh side is going to be inwards, and I'm going to sew around in here, around the last, and join it up the front, get the other bit, join it around the back, have a seam, cut down here sufficiently so I can make that tongue, and I can slide my foot in and out. I've got some laces I've already made, and I'll put together. Sounds simple. It isn't. Let me just start by saying that. Now, because just making this took me long enough, a lot of testing and adjusting, because you want to make it fit your foot, but you don't want it so tight that you can't get your foot in, because it fits your foot so well. Thankfully, the tongue will give me that freedom to get my foot in. Okay, so I start off with this really nice thick leather. It's nice and supple. Now, this is not suitable for a sole. It needs to be harder, and the fibers need to be compressed. Now, one of the things that every shoemaker had was a lapstone. Why is it called a lapstone? Because it's a stone that goes on your lap. Now, this is heavy. It has to be heavy, because you get your hammer and you get your leather and you hit the leather, you can hear that's really quite painful, and you start compressing the leather. You can probably see it better there, and you can see that it compresses down. Now, the main reason I believe, and there's probably other reasons, but the main one is because when you put the pegs in, if the leather is soft, the holes that you create to put the pegs in will just wobble and move. So if you compress the leather, it'll hold those pegs in. Also, the harder the leather is more compressed, arguably the more wear you'll get out of it as well. So I need to take the leather and I need to hammer it with my hammer, with my lapstone. I'm not going to do it now because it's just boring. Why the hell would you want to watch me do that? Okay, so get this thing off. There was a guy who was a battalion cobbler, so he didn't make shoes, he repaired shoes, but he had to have one of these because you needed to flatten all the soles that were provided to the soldiers. And he quite joyfully threw this away because it was just a painful thing. It is a hefty piece of rock. Okay, so what am I going to do? So I want to talk about the last. So and the tools that we use for this. Now, take it back, and I feel like a really bad YouTuber now, but at least I'm not reminiscing back at the very start. So 2015, we took my wife Deanne and my daughter Genevieve. 2015, we went and participated in the 200-year anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo. Unbelievable. We did other things like go to a 100-year anniversary of Anzac Cove and the 600-year anniversary of Agincourt and the 800-year signing of the Magna Carta at Runnymede. So amazing stuff. But we were driving around and Dee says, I want to go see this museum. It's a shoe museum. Go, yep, not a problem. It's out near Bath. Don't ask me where it is. Is it the Barter shoes? Anyway, it's black and white footage of people at the beginning of the 20th century still making hand-stitched shoes. And the fascinating thing was the lack of nails that were actually being used. It was a great big awl, linen thread with boar's bristles, and they were putting it through, big stitches coming through, doing it all, and that was the bit that you were watching. And that's just absolutely fascinating because that was totally different from the way that I make medieval shoes. Medieval shoes are what we call turn shoes, where you make them inside out and you turn them the right way, so all the stitching's on the inside. Here, the stitching is still on the inside, but with the last, you've got the sole, and you've got the sole here, and you've got the leather coming through, and because you've got the leather hard against the wood, you can't use the traditional awl. If you can see the awl, it's a very straight awl, diamond cross section, very sharp. But for medieval shoes, that's the type of awl that you use, and so you could manipulate the leather around if you want to go through off on an edge, or have a tunnel stitch where you don't break through the skin side, you're only going through the flesh side. So all the stitching to join the sole and the upper is all this tunnel stitching. You can't really do it well. You can do it, but you can't do it well with a straight awl. And so they invented, it's probably better to see, a curved awl. So you can hook up and around. Probably arguably very similar to doing stitches nowadays. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to, now this is just the first introductory part, and if I feel suitably bored, part two is I've actually got leather in, and I'm starting to stitch, and making the various channels and everything like that. It's all very exciting. I think anyway, it might bore you to tears, but if you're watching this, you're probably interested in that sort of stuff. But the thing is the lack of nails. I'll probably put 2 nails in here just to keep it the sole in place as I start stitching down. Otherwise, it'll just roll all over the place and just becomes a nightmare. You see in modern shoemaking where it is you get this, and it's really cool. I like this. So you're grabbing the leather with this, pulling it back, then you're getting the nail using the little hammerhead, hammer it in, pull the next one over, hammer it in. You're going through. Now, I don't believe that back in the early 19th century they actually used a lot of nails. Nails are expensive. I think even we saw it's industrial age and had lots of nails. Well, I don't believe so. And I've seen a last of the earlier time period. You only see the nail holes here. More modern, you will see the nails going around and around here because they're putting it in, and that means the last won't last very long. Maybe a dozen shoes before you have to get a new last. So only seeing nails in the center indicate that nails are only used to hold the leather in place here, and nails weren't used to pin everything down until we got to a point where you could mass produce mass of little steel nails. People, I think, underestimate the amount of effort it is to make nails nowadays. Okay, so that's what I'm planning to do. The linen thread, I'm going to use a modern linen thread, but I'm using needles. I'm not using boars, bristles, because I can't afford to buy them from overseas and bring them over here. Getting boars, bristles is really hard, and that's just a one step up. I know people who do it, and that's absolutely amazing, and one day I will do that, but not for these pair of shoes. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to start doing today. I might make a video, I don't know, but I will just wait and see. But anyway, thank you very much for putting up with me. As you can hear, I'm still got COVID, but I'm feeling much better. And this is one thing to fill in my time while watching season 7 of Game of Thrones. Okay, thank you very much.